Okay. Morning, Mutswapuling. Did I get that right? I'm sorry.
Yes, you did get it right. Morning.
Sure. Not bad, eh?
Yes, not bad. 100% correct.
Yeah, welcome to the group. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Okay, I don't know if I'm doing great, but yeah. Thank you for the warm welcome. So I'll see if I'm going to be doing great after this.
Cool. How's it, Russell?
Morning.
Glad to see you got your IT sorted for once.
Good.
You have a good weekend?
Yeah, I had a good weekend, thanks. It was good and productive. Yeah, and then just been listening to like a lot of things, and the Extra Advisor podcast has a lot of, the one with Louis has a lot of gems, I would say. So I started making notes per podcast actually, and how to apply practically. So I think for anyone out there, if you have time, I would recommend like listening to a lot of those talks, you know. Especially Dirks.
Yeah, I drive a lot, so when I drive, I listen to all of them. So, yeah, at least normally 2 or 3 a week.
Yeah, and if it's too slow, like I play it, it's still pretty decent, but I play it at 1.25 speed. And it's not too fast, but it's like, you know, it keeps the pace a little bit faster, you know, so at least you can capture everything and all that as well.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of good stuff out there. We should actually share some of the podcasts we listen to because, yeah, it's a quick and easy way to learn a lot of stuff.
Yeah, what I try and do actually, what I started doing with those podcasts and also like some of the stuff I share in the LFP, for example, from like Christo, even those for like designer, I try and make points and then I actually try and apply it like the next day just to test and experiment it as well. Because, you know, there's that notion of like you can learn and take as much knowledge as you want, but unless you learn how to apply it practically, it's just data in a sense. I think there was a post by Brendan Fraser, he posted something like that. Makes complete sense to me, you know.
Yeah, that one I sent you where he summarized his 10 best learnings was really good. So yeah, but there are lots of good stuff out there. Yeah, just give it a few more minutes. I know Simon's running a little late.
Yeah, I think just on that Brendan Fraser, sorry, I would say also to anyone that definitely follow him. So what I do, I'm sure Dirk, you also see it. It's very nice. He sometimes posts like top 20 podcast episodes to listen to. And then I screenshot that off LinkedIn and then I go and download those episodes. Yeah, that's very helpful as well.
There's actually a new one that started by advisors in the UK. So we know Alan Smith, Alan Hart, Nick Lincoln, Andy and Nick are going to be at Humans Under Management this week. But it's three advisors, and a Scottishman, an Irishman, and an Englishman, and so that's going to be pretty good. I know it's new; they just launched their first one. Frank, we've got a few new links here. Frank, do you want to just tell the group about yourself and why you wanting to join the group?
Yeah, I've been in this this business for about 14 years now. I was a publisher for 25 years, and then the digital nightmare appeared for publishers, and it just basically took my business to pieces within a year. So I got out and I started again actually with Old Mutual. I was 45 years old. I had to reinvent myself. So anyway, that was it was a good learning. I got a little bit tired.
Sorry, Frank. Frank, can you put your camera on? We'd like to see you.
Oh, geez, I'm a bit scruffy.
No, that's fine. I need a haircut.
I've been at the gym. I'm actually feeling quite nauseous, to be honest. Yeah, so I went to Mutual at the age of 45, and I reinvented my career there. And about 4 years ago, we hit COVID, and they dragged us into a boardroom and said, "We'll see you in 3 months' time." And I said, "Well, you won't." So I joined David O'Brien at Meerkat, and I did a bit of work for him on an emergency savings and debt. And then I joined the Engage group, as an advisor, and then halfway through last year, I was offered a franchise, which I'm now busy building. We're trying to do things slightly differently, but you know, it's like as you get to that point where you've forgotten what really mattered in the beginning, and that's one of the reasons I want to get engaged with people that are like really in the business, and start remembering the stuff that I've forgotten, and hopefully I know I'll learn a whole lot of new stuff. So yeah, I've got four guys now, and we're based in the Western Cape. We can do everything. We can sell anything anywhere, but we are tied to Old Mutual Wealth, and we've sort of cherry picked the products within that. We have a few alternate assets that we're looking at, but everything except crypto, because every time I think I understand crypto, I don't. So I'm just nervous of losing clients by giving crap advice. So we're looking at a few other little bits and pieces. You know, people are looking to getting money offshore, and you just got to find products and asset classes that you can satisfy the time frames and the returns. Yeah, but yeah, just happy to be here. I do a thing. I do quite a few, not quite a few. I do three, including this one, sort of external influencing type adventures. So I'm hoping this is going to be really beneficial, and I'll get my guys on here as well at one point when they've earned it.
Cool. And Frank, when you say you needed to remember what you forgot and what it's all about, just elaborate on that, please.
It was, you know, what made me get into the business in the first place. I mean, you know, I don't want to speak badly of anyone or any organization, but it was all bottom line APE driven, and that's just not the way to do this business anymore. So we're looking at, you know, we have a mantra that we go about our business: serve before you sell. We also get rich slowly, and we give a shit, basically. And you know, you can't just jump in now and start developing that as a customer journey or a pathway. I've just got to remember where I came from, and I've also got to take a lot of information from a lot of other people, and this is where I hope I can learn, because you so quickly, it's the default in our business in South Africa, and it's a generalization, I know. But it's all about bottom line. It's like kill what you eat what you kill, sorry. And that's not what we're about. We're taking a longer term view. We'll probably earn a lot less money up front, but we definitely want to try and create a really sustainable business. We've got quite a big focus on kids, youth. We have a brand, Fearless Financial Futures. We're trying to get kids involved, and we're trying to get kids whose parents are slapgat to get themselves involved as well. So yeah, it's really is just to go back and learn from the beginning, and try and develop, because I just don't want to develop a non-sustainable same thing. I want something different. It's easy to say, not so easy to implement.
Frank, I love that. I mean, you're quite right. So you just said there, it's easy to say, not so easy to implement, and get rich slowly. And I think, you know, that's one of the biggest problems we have in this industry, is that people come in and expect to be earning big bucks up front. And actually, I've gone on record, and I'll say it again: if you're making a lot of money early in this business, then you're not doing it right. It's just not. It's not possible if you're learning in that. So, I mean, this group was started really by myself to help young, and when we say young in the industry, or young to looking at lifestyle planning, to kind of learn, you know, like people who want to do the right thing, but like it's very difficult to find people to actually show you or teach you how to do that. So it's really all about that, and our attitude here is that like learning never stops; it keeps on going, regardless of how long we've been doing this or of our age. So yeah, I think you guys would be a good fit. And what's also really important in the group is sharing, and that's where you'll see today a lot of what we do is just about sharing experiences. There's no stupid questions. There's no silver bullets, but obviously it's a group where it's a safe place to ask questions that you think might be silly, but if you're thinking of them, probably a whole lot of other people are. So great. So welcome. Thanks, man. Okay, who else is new here? Matswapuleng. There, I got it right twice. Tell us about yourself, please.
Oh my gosh, sorry, my network was a bit shady. Okay, now I need to do the introduction. So, okay, my name is Moswapuleng Colleen. I work for PPS based in Western Cape. I started when did I join the industry? I think I started in 2017. And I started with Sanlam, and then I moved to Old Mutual, and yeah, that's how I ended up at PPS. So, yeah, it's been quite a lot of a journey, and I decided to change the mindset into the whole thing because I felt like maybe I was doing something wrong. That's how I felt, because in the past, we used to just be like more into, I felt like I was in sales, but I didn't really want to be into sales that much more. So then I decided like, okay, let me just start to take this thing as a learning curve and to learn what exactly is a financial planning. And I studied with UFS, and then I registered one module this year for postgrad financial planning. Then I'll complete next year probably. So just to get to understand the whole idea behind and to educate more people. So that's my goal to do about it, like the reason I went about it. So that's where I am now. You are on mute.
Sorry. Okay, great. Thanks, man. I know Simon will join us now. Okay, Haley, my mic isn't working. No problem. I think so. Russell, you shared a podcast which was quite interesting, and I think it breaches a whole lot of areas for especially for people starting out. So I think let's start with you, Russell. I mean, obviously that podcast struck a chord with you, and just why did that, and then what are you currently doing at the moment that did speak to you, and yeah, just your feelings around that, please.
Great, thanks. Yeah, like I said, so that podcast is called The Future without the E at the end, or Crystal. I've been following him actually for quite a while, just to give you guys some context, for the last probably 3 or 4 years. And I think initially what one of his clips got me by was it was one of his, he likes to do case studies, which is very helpful, of role plays with feedback he will get from clients. And the initial clip that kind of caught me or got me was basically a client, and even though they're in a different space, they're in the creative space, they're not in financial planning. A lot of the lessons, let me just mention that it's very applicable to like our industry or any business owner. And he was role playing a clip where a client questioned his pricing and his value that he was offering, which is very relatable to like us, because we do proper financial planning and lifestyle financial planning. And especially in a consumer market where clients are used to, either they've had bad experiences or haven't had good advice, or they're used to like perceiving an advisor's value based on the product you offer, not really experiencing good advice. It's been also a learning curve over the last few years, learning that and how to extract value past the product, so that when we build, or when I build my value proposition and I'm still improving on it for clients, they buy me for me. So yeah, when I listened to that podcast, and I actually listened to it like 3 or 4 times, and then I took notes. The whole point that he spoke about that podcast was about, just closing, is, I would say, building different pricing models and giving the client options when it comes to paying for your advice. I think, as we've mentioned a lot on this meeting or session previously before, even though a lot of clients, and for a lot of younger, I would say young advisors that are coming into industry, whether it's age or tenure, the biggest problem we kind of deal with is basically, or that can kind of get discouraging, is like people's perception of financial advisors, and it's unfortunate, it's changing, but it's unfortunate that a lot of clients or consumers haven't really experienced good advice. And the nice thing about that, actually, I used to get discouraged about it, but the nice way you can look at that, and I've also learned it through podcasts and also reflecting, is that yes, it's negative on the surface level of it, but you can actually use it to your advantage, because that means the bar is set so low for the consumer, the client. So if you deliver an experience, and that's how I've seen it, if you deliver an experience that's way above that and completely different to what they're expecting or experienced before, the likelihood of them referring you to family, friends, or talking about you to others is most likely going to be quite high, and you end up getting a lot of referrals out of that. So coming back to the podcast that I was listening to, another thing that a lot of us have seen within the industry or on LinkedIn is this whole thing about fees. And Dirk, I know we've we've had chats before in the past about it on the lifestyle financial planning group. And I think now, especially since we, move in the space to like proper advice and consumers are being more aware of it, the nice thing that I'd say we have the option to is kind of like, and I've also spoken to Lee about it, is try and give your client, what I'm trying to do is build different fee packages so that I'm not only commission based, and you see a lot about it in the UK and Australia and the US where, there's a lot of practice which it's more fee based there. But in South Africa, you have to take into account the demographics and also the consumer market where it's quite hard just to kind of just go straight cold turkey from like commission of products or taking upfront fees tied to a product profile straight into like fee based. And when I was talking to Louis about this, because I also sent it to him, he said, probably the easier route, not technically easy, but probably a better way to transition to that route is kind of give your clients more options. And I know Ben, we've also talked about as well of like, you don't, because Ben also, I remember he said he did the fee or retainer option, but a way you could position the client is after that first experience and they have that, see what actually good advice is, then you say, look, these are the different ways, you can pay me. Either I, charge a fee or I take commission off a product, which is a traditional route. Or secondly, this is what you can pay me by retainer fee, and this is the value that you're going to get, my meetings or check-ins we have, what are we going to do in terms of your lifestyle financial planning and so forth. Or the third route is basically, billing per hour or billing per consult, which also I know is available. So I think coming to like what I'm trying to do, what I've bought is I'm fully commission based at the moment. I have probably about 10 or 15% of my clients that, it's through tax advisory with my other partners as well, where they've gone onto more retainer or paying a fee basis. But I'm also trying to develop a third package now, and I'm working on it with Terence Coburn from Rich Ideas. That's also giving me some good hints or pointers. Is try and get I would say a fee-based option so that when you present to a client, and you do this all upfront in the first meeting so that you also save yourself time as well. Like, okay, this is what we can do. These are the areas, that I think we can solve or get you back on track. And I always do this in the first meeting. These are the ways that I charge my fees. And I think that already from my experience, what I've been kind of testing with a lot of clients, it earns a lot of clients trust because I don't know, about the rest of you, but a lot of clients, especially new clients I deal with, they don't expect that level of transparency, and they're like, oh, you're so open about how you charge. Usually like there's this hidden, they have the expectation there's going to be this hidden fee or this huge commission. And then it also, I've learned from that podcast with Christo, it saves you as the business owner, entrepreneur time because you can also get from the get-go in that first meeting, is a client committed, can they afford you? Because the biggest complaint we have is like, and with all due respect, like we want to help every client, but at the same time, the charity is that you spend so much time working on a client case. And this is the downside of being tied to commission with a product. You spend so much time doing planning, everything in client case. And there's such a high risk at the end of by your third meeting, that client could take your proposal recommendation and go to another advisor down the street that's charging less, or they do it themselves, or they, especially with DIY, they go and sort out the stuff yourself, or they don't decide not to implement. So there's a lot of risk on our end, and we've done so much work. So coming back to it, that's why I'm looking at other fee options as well.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Russell. Okay, great. So what you're saying is you finding that you have clients at different levels, and so are you actively looking at different service offerings?
Yes, 100%. Because I think that's also one thing you learn over time is that you're not meant to service or advise every Tom, Dick, or Harry, or every client. There's enough clients for each and every one of us. And it sounds harsh, but like you eventually have to start niching down, okay, like what specific clients you want to deal with. And a good example for instance, with Ben, he's targeting doctors, for instance, and it just makes or streamlines your business. And I think also I'm still young in the industry, I think, but like from building or scaling your business, it's easier to scale your business because you're not big thing is you're not becoming a generalist, you're not trying to serve everybody. And then likewise, your marketing, your content, and your service and your value proposition can also be niched down, for you.
Yeah. Okay. So Okay, I see Simon has joined us, and Ferdy, welcome, guys. So great. Okay, so having been in the business for over 30 years now, so let me tell you, it's a hell of a difficult thing. And I've said this before, and for the new people, you know, I really don't believe there's a right or wrong way of charging. Only thing is charging upfront commission on 20, 30-year investments is definitely a no-no, because the client gets completely screwed. But, you know, I think, you know, whether you earn commission on risk products, or you charge an AUM fee, or you charge a flat fee, I think there's way too much chatter about that on every social media platform. And I think as long as we open with our clients as to how we are charging, and they understand what they're paying and what they're getting for it, then there really is not a problem. And I have a problem with people who are actually putting down people who charge in different ways. Okay, and I can say this because after 30 years in the industry, I know guys who in similar situations around the world are now very proudly announcing that, you know, they flat fee and they're this and they're that. The reality is to get their business to that level, they've earned commission, they've charged AUM, and most of them are still in the transition phase of getting there. And when you broach it with them, then they kind of admit, well, yeah, they would never have been able to do it, or it would have been very difficult starting out that way. And reasons are very simple. When you're young in the business, when you're in your 20s or your early 30s, you're going to battle to find clients who resonate with you, who have 4 or 5 million rand to invest, or even 2 million rand to invest. That's just a fact. So, you know, you can be a hotshot salesman, but chances are that you're then not maybe doing the job correctly, because the reality is a 60-year-old is not really going to resonate with a 28-year-old. It's just how it works. There'll be very few of those examples. So I think get that out the way, how you earn your money, as long as clients understand it and they know what they're paying and what they're getting for it, then it's fine. So we're going through an exercise with Brett Davidson at the moment. We've been working with him for a few months, and we'll continue. And one of the things we did is analyze our complete client base. So we only do lifestyle planning. All our clients either go through our process or they don't work with us. It's that simple. Whether they a 25-year-old starting their first job, or a 60-year-old looking to retire, whether they've got no money or they've got tens of millions. So that's important. We've got a handful of clients where it's a university or a corporate where they've just got some money with us, but 99% of our clients go through our process. What we then did is we actually broke it down. So I said, okay, what's the minimum we want to earn from our clients per year to make them profitable for the business? And we've done an exercise to understand. We know that onboarding a client costs us about 17,000, 18,000 rand. That happens in the first year. So, you know, we have a business with 2 offices and with staff and CRMs and, you know, other models and things that we use that all has to be paid for. So we said, okay, well, let's start off with, we're going to earn a minimum of 20,000 rand a year from our clients. And we're not really making money. We kind of breaking even, okay? And then we split clients. And what we did is we split clients into family units. So like a husband and a wife and their trust and maybe their kids, as that's one family unit. And we created it like that, or maybe their business with them together. And there we found we have 64 units that pay us more than 20,000 rand a year, which was quite shocking for me. But also it's good because it showed that the way that we focus on what we do is working. However, we broke it down then further, and we discovered that 25% of those clients earn us 60% of our income. And our average family unit earns us 70,000 rand a year. So you can see straight away there's a hell of a disparity. This is we've been doing lifestyle planning for about 22 years now. So it's an established business. We've weeded out. We don't have transactional clients. We only have lifestyle clients. And I was actually quite shocked, because when we let the list run on of anyone we're earning something on, there's like 180 people. So, you know, there's 120 where we are not earning enough. A few of those are inactive. But then obviously some of those are young professionals who are starting out that Alex and Ben would work with. So, you know, they maybe need life cover for a bond, or, you know, to cover their newborn baby. So we understand we're not going to earn a lot of money from them now, but working with them into the future, again, as where you now, Frank, as you were trying to say, you're trying to build a business long term. That's what we're trying to do. We're not trying to build like maximum income. What's our turnover for this year? Let's try and beat it next year. We're looking at building that is sustainable and that really adds value. So anyway, it was a real eye opener that is what our client base looks like, and then it led to a whole lot of other changes. So I think, and then trying to find your niche in there. So if we look at our top 10 clients, we're quite amazed at how many are engineers, builders, run their own businesses, or are directors in businesses. So that's obviously clearly where personally I slot in. But then, as you're saying, Russell, Ben has a different, like almost target group that he's targeting, and then in Alex himself as well. So, I mean, I'm sharing this with you, but there's no silver bullet here. I think the reality is to have the ideal business, it can't happen overnight. It's not like any other industry where you have a product where the value is really around the product. You know, it's a generator, or it's a widget, or whatever it is. You know, in our industry, our product is the client experience. Russell, you can't even say it's you. You're the one that delivers that product. But I think we need to understand that the client experience that we give is really what our product is, and that actually is only experienced over time. It's not, and again, that's why in our process we have 3-4 meetings when we onboard clients, and even then you only build that initial relationship. So again, I mean, for those of you that are starting out, as hard as it is, I think you've got to realize that you've got to stick at it. And if you do stick at it, you know, whether it's 45-year-old Frank or Yondela or Haley joining a more mature business as well, I think the reality is that that it's a tough business to be in. And if you're not joining an established business, it's even harder. And personally, that's why I think a lot of business owners like myself are missing you know, an opportunity, because they're basically looking at what's in it for themselves and building a book, even if they're doing lifestyle planning, but they're not actually building a business or a firm. We talk about a practice. I think doctors share a receptionist in a building. I think you should be building a firm where you're building something that is sustainable. So let's get back to talking about niches now. Ben, I mean, I don't know if you want to share. You've got quite a specific niche, and I know you've worked on this for years, and some of the successes and some of the battles that you've had.
Yeah, so I have a niche that I work with, and I kind of fell into it. You might say I should have been destined, with my dad being a doctor, and my sister being a doctor, and my wife being a doctor. But the reality is that because every financial advisor harasses doctors, you know, they absolutely hate financial advisors, you know. So much so that I think if I was at a bar and I knew there were doctors, I'd just say I'm a car salesman, because at least I could carry on talking to them. If they heard financial advisor, they would just sort of walk away. And that's kind of what, you know, the industry has done to a lot of people, and I think a lot of you can relate to that. But the thing is that I was just so sick and tired of seeing them being ripped off, you know, as I think a lot of us have been. And that's why I was like, this is why I want to work with these people. But I know that they're busy, and I know that they've got a lot happening, but I need to help them out, because if I don't, who's going to show them, you know, sort of the right way? And so yeah, that's kind of been my little crusade, I guess. But the nice thing though about working with a niche is that you know exactly what they're going through. And so when you're talking to them at their level. So I understand, and again, it is because of the people that I'm around, but I understand what's the difference between an internship and ComServe and a medical officer and a registrar and a consultant and what primaries mean and all these different things. So when I'm talking to them, I can say, okay, you're in ComServe now, you're going to be a medical officer next year. You know, how, and I've had this conversation exactly with a client. I said, you're not guaranteed a job. I mean, up until this age, they were 27, the whole life has been planned out for them. And it's the first time that they have to apply for a job, you know, and because they're conditioned to just always going up to the next level, they just assume they're going to have a job. So I said, well, what's going to happen in January if you don't have a job? And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, well, you got to apply for them. And she's like, oh yeah, I just always assumed I'd have a job. And so we were able to put money away and save in case she didn't have a job in, you know, January or February. We knew probably there afterwards she would. And we put this away. So again, we can, when you know the niche, you're doing, so you're not doing reactive planning, you know, you're doing proactive planning. You're actually thinking ahead and actually making a meaningful difference in their life. When you're talking about their goals, for example, you know, what are you trying to achieve? You know, often people might say a car, this and that, but now I can bring in the work element. I can say, okay, well, you want to do, are you wanting to specialize? And I'll say, yes. I say, okay, well, you know, primaries, that's going to cost you 10 grand just to write the exam. They're like, really? I'm like, yep. Then it's like, okay, if you're based in here, you got to go there and do the exam. So you got to pay accommodation, you got to pay this. So the whole exam experience, for example, might cost, you know, 15 to 20. Where's that going to come from? And so then you're actually really being involved in their life and doing active planning and directing it. So yeah, I think then it's so much different to just saying, I think you need to increase your life cover, you know, increase your income protection, and let's increase your RA. I'll see you again next year. You know, you're having real deep conversations.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. And I mean, how has it been, you know, trying to concentrate on that niche? I mean, we know you're really good with your online marketing, even before you joined us. I mean, you were quite exceptional with that. I mean, how has that been? You know, what kind of response have you got?
I think so it has been hard. I don't think, you know, it's not like I've got 20 doctors lining up outside my door. But I think again, the good thing about having a niche is that you know then where to try and find these people. And so I can say, oh, there's these journals, for example. Let me try and get an article into this journal. You know, I find out, then someone will say, why don't you do this? And I'm like, oh, okay. And then you find out, okay, there's actually, you know, all the consultants, for example, will have a convention once a year. Okay, so how can I maybe try and get into talk at that convention, for example? And so those are things you can look to because you know exactly where you're trying to, or who you're targeting. I think if you're just trying to, and also you can be very specific in your messaging. So again, when you're saying about online marketing, you can talk to the specific problems. You know, there's very difference between saying, you know, a general message that you're trying to hit everybody, and you're talking specifically to them. So I do know, like, also with doctors, it's very difficult. They don't often have much time on social media. But what I am started doing is to bring out a WhatsApp Wednesday, which is almost like a broadcast group, and then it's broadcast, you know, it's to them. And again, I'm just going to be talking about. So, for example, if I'm talking about buyer versus rent, I'm going to talk it from a doctor's perspective. So it's not just a general buyer versus rent. I say, okay, well, you're going to do internship for 2 years, then you're going to ComServe for 1 year, then you can be a medical officer. You might want to specialize, then you're going to move again. So in the first 6 years of your life, is it worth buying a house because you're going to be moving around? You know, those kind of things. And again, it's kind of specific for my target audience. It's not a general buyer versus, you know, rent. So I think in those kind of things, when you got your niche, you can actually address those problems. And I think if you know what your niche is, you can just kind of write down 3 sort of their top problems or 5 of their top problems that they have. And then you can sort of talk about each of those problems in different ways. And then you can tailor make your message for your market.
Okay, cool. I mean, I think what I've learned is that, especially when you're starting out, your so-called target market, I mean, it's great if you have one, and I'll get shot down by saying that, it's quite hard doing that when you're starting out, because when you start out, you're going to do business with anyone who will listen to you, which is a good and a bad thing. Good because the more people you're working with, the more you're learning about yourself and how you deal with people, the more experience you're gaining. But also not a good thing, because you could be working with people who in the long run are maybe going to take up a lot of time, but not going to be in a profitable relationship with you. But I think I really don't know that there's any way around that, apart from if you join an established business. And as I've said, I think there are very few, there are more and more, but there are very few businesses that will allow that will be doing that, because most of the guys out there are just keeping at this until they basically kick the bucket. So I think also what will happen is, as your experience grows and as you get more established in your business, so like where we are now, I'll use us as an example, you will eventually say, okay, well, look, generally we didn't have a specific target market, but if we look at our top clients, these are obviously the kind of people we work really well with, that we understand, and you can almost understand what your niche is then. So sometimes if you have a bit of a client base, have a look at that and try and analyze that, their family situations, their occupations, what they do, that kind of thing. But I definitely think it will change. Then the question is, like, eventually when you start off as a youngster or new in the business, and then you build something where now cash flow is working, everyone gets paid decently. And now you've got the situation like we have, where suddenly you've got a whole lot of people that aren't paying you what you need. And then a lot of those are probably never going to be able to get to where you need them to. And I know that, so there's different things you can do there. You could pass those down to another business that's in a different phase. Or what we're looking to do is saying, well, hang on, we quite proud of the relationships that we built. Those little old ladies that have been dealing with me for 20 years, we're going to keep looking after them. But we are going to have to, because I don't like having different client offerings. But the reality is if they're in retirement, they've got money in living annuity and some other stuff, there's not too much we can do. The plans have basically been put in place. They've been working for 15 or 20 years. The clients understand it. So what we're going to start doing now is moving some of those clients to work with, say, Alex and Ben. So what that does is it again gives them the opportunity to deal with more people, hence learning, and then obviously frees me up more to try and find more of the ideal clients. And where we say ideal, we're talking purely financially, because obviously, I've got a few gray hairs. It's a little bit easier for me, and because of 30 years of networking. So that's just reality. It's just what it is. But because we're in a business, we're able to look at it and say, well, what's best for Ben or Dirk or Alex, or the business. It's actually like what is best for the business itself, if we want to get to where we want to be. So I think we're lucky. But again, we've only realized this because we've embarked on this process with Brett. Yeah, I want to chat to Simon. You've been in here a while now. I know, Simon, we all know you've come successfully into your father-in-law's business. You're nicely established now after a few years, and I'm pretty sure you would also have had experience where you have your kind of ideal clients that you move to lifestyle planning, and then clients who kind of aren't going to budge.
Yeah. So hi, Dick. Hi, everyone. I wasn't able to sort of target a niche market at all. So for me, it's not applicable in the slightest. So I came into a business that's at the time was closing in on being around for 30 years. So as you can imagine, the client base had very little to nothing to do with me, and was, all over the place, from different occupations, different ages. So when I came in, the main thing was to obviously introduce myself to everyone, and through that, the referrals that we have gotten over time and the existing client base are hugely different. So I was just interesting listening to Ben's stuff, because I've never really had the ability to focus on one particular type of client. Ours is very, very different.
Okay, and so let's just talk ideal clients. So, like, I know for you, a lifestyle planning is an ideal client. but also in the existing client base that you're having to deal with, there are clients that don't get that. How do you deal with that? And do you have kind of a separate offering, even if it's not written down? Do you deal with these differently?
Yeah. So I mean, I'll pitch the lifestyle financial planning at every meeting to everyone, and kind of try and follow the similar process. But yeah, it's in reality, it obviously doesn't work that way for most people. Well, not most, but there are a large number of people that sort of either don't have the time or don't quite buy into it. So I mean, with them being existing clients, it's not like I can. Or it's not like I can or want to shoo them away, but I take it step by step with them. Often it's sort of each meeting, again, not ideal, but we'll deal with either one particular thing or be sort of very ad hoc, or call it single needs. And you try and, my sort of goal with those people is to slowly over time, whether it's bit by bit, but also get them to buy into doing, fully sort of lifestyle financial planning. But I think because it is a bit tricky, because there is already existing relationships there, so it's not like if we don't see eye to eye on the lifestyle financial planning thing, that they go their own way. They've got long-standing, in most instances, long-standing relationships with us in some way or form. So I just kind of manage it like that and do it more on their terms.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think, as I said, I've also got a huge issue with having different offerings, because for me, it kind of feels like we're going to love some more than we love others. And I kind of, in my world, that doesn't work. In fact, the people with less probably need more love than the people that have got enough or more than they need. But I think the reality is that we're looking at is like saying, well, hang on, a lot of those clients that are below the line for us, the work's been done. It's been done over many years. There's not too much we can do there. And looking at other ways to still make them feel the love, but maybe just not. So the first is that eventually not going to see Dirk every single time. I can pop my head in or say, how's it? But they've got to get used to having relationships with other planners in the business, which itself is good for them in case something happens to me. And it's also good for the business. We're actually bringing on busy onboarding a new CRM. And one of the main reasons for doing that is we found Xplan was useless and we couldn't really utilize it in any way. And our new offering is definitely going to be able to do that. And it will help us have more contact points with those clients. So maybe, I think we're probably going to end up saying, well, these are the clients kind of below the mark, and how can we still make them feel the love without necessarily having a one-on-one? And kind of being a little bit more reactive, but bearing in mind the plan's already been in place. So I've come to realize that you actually can't, because you can't do what we're trying to do in the business is make a business that lasts for, let's say, 100 years and helps young planners create, their careers, looks after the old oak like me, and still looks after clients. And the bottom line is, the economics of running a business. But it's hard to do that. So Frank, if I can ask you, so you've been doing this for 15 years. You started off at a corporate where I think a lot of people, on the forum probably started off with either Mutual or Sanlam or Liberty, and then have kind of evolved from there. And that's not a good or a bad thing. It's where those opportunities arose. But how has that changed? So do you have like a target market? Do you have a way of marketing or finding clients? Anything you can share with us there, please?
Yeah, I do actually, because it didn't work in the past. So the social media, I'm 57, so social media just scares the crap out of me. I just really, I have to ask my son, who's 14, to help me a lot of the time. So we've got someone who handles that, but we needed to build niches. Okay, so we've got more than one advisor. We've got a franchise niche on the customer pathway, and then we've got individual niches. So I'll give you an example of my niche. Okay, my niche is 45 to 55 that are behind plan. They've been rinsed by COVID. They're not on track, and they need a plan, and they're desperate to get back on track. So in order to identify niche, we go through, we use quite closely the IWP, Integrated Wealth Planning, Old Mutual Wealth product, which is, I mean, it's bulletproof. It exposes everything. But, you know, we need complete honesty, which is sometimes difficult, where you are. I mean, I found 300,000 Rand go-karts under tarpaulins that wives didn't know about. So it gets messy. But you need to have that hard conversation. And then, you know, then you say, where do you, it's not like what do you need, it's what do you want. It's about a want, because then you get complete honesty. I mean, obviously bar, you know, Maseratis in Lake Como, and that's just rubbish. You have where do you want to be in 10, 15, 20 years time, or 10, you know, 5, 10, 15 years time. And we go through that in-depth process, and then we build a plan. But just in terms of identifying niches, we don't want to be cold calling, because that is just, I mean, as Ben probably, you know, that's where the doctors have got pissed off, because they're getting cold calls every single second day. So our thing is about not telling stories, but it's about creating stories with groups of people. So once you create a story, so for example, I've got a client who's a big shot at ABSA. And everything, you know, financially she's fine. She got involved with a bad bunch of guys, blah, blah, blah. So we've moved everything across. But I needed to do something extra for her. So the serve before you sell. So she's got a husband he's got an illness, not a debilitating illness, but he needs to go to gym like every day. He's the laziest person I know. He's a very good friend of mine, but he is lazy. So I asked her, what's going on? And she said, this bloody husband of mine will not go to gym. So I go and I'm a diabetic, so I go to gym every day. And I drag this arsehole out of his house and I take him every day. So now I've created a story. So when someone goes to Kerry and says, oh, I've got a problem with my retirement's off plan, blah, blah, blah. She goes, well, Frank, you know what Frank did for me? And it's a silly example, but you create this, and I mean, there's an immediate sense of trust is built slowly. It doesn't happen immediately, but I'm finding a lot of trust, and a lot of people are phoning me because they said, we heard what you do for Kerry. And so that's I mean, I have a niche there. It's a demographic, it's an income, it's position, it's age, it's a whole different thing. It's male or female, but I'm starting to find a lot of people in similar situations to her that are coming to me. It's not foolproof, but you know, yeah, it's just a different way of doing stuff. It's a longer way to make money. As I said, you get rich slower, but you are servicing before you're selling. So it ticks our boxes, and then you also just give a shit. You actually give a shit because you're doing different stuff from the normal guy. You're differentiating yourself. You're separating yourself from the red water, and you're hopefully creating some blue water stuff. That's where we want to be. We don't want to be in the red water fighting with everybody over the same people. We want to find people that are in red water, probably, but desperate to get into the blue water space, where it's a little easier and a little cleaner. So I don't know if I've made sense.
Yeah.
But,
No, for sure. No, definitely. I mean, I think
Yeah.
I've always said to the guys, our niche is like people who see value in what we do, which is lifestyle planning. People who really want to go through our process. We use the IWP extensively as well.
Yeah.
But I think so obviously that's our big niche is we're not transactional. We only do lifestyle financial planning. Doesn't matter how much money you got. If you're not interested, we're not going to work with you. Because that makes the whole offering much easier because everyone in the business understands that is what we do.
Yeah.
And
So
I agree with you. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, it's just the inclusivity. I mean, I just find a lot of people, you know, they've got big jobs, but they do not understand what they've bought. They literally do not understand. So it's trying to be inclusive, and that gives transparency and that gives trust. So also, you know, a little bit of the compliance nightmare can be taken off your plate if they're coming to you and saying, okay, we've had this relationship, this journey. This is what I need, because they know what they need, because you've taught them, you've coached them, I mean, it's a little bit, you know, can be a little bit sort of airy fairy and sort of bit blue sky, but that's the eventual outcome we want.
Yeah, well, if we're not getting airy fairy, then we're not connecting with our clients. So, you know, we do mention exactly those words just to get them out the way, but for sure. And I think what's also important is when you're building a business with various planners in it, you will probably have a way of working. So for you, you've said we give a shit, we really care. So like that's a broad niche, but then within that, because you've got, like in our example as well, we've got planners from different backgrounds in different situations at different ages. Automatically, they're going to resonate with different people. And I mean, I'm 54. Even if I find another 54-year-old who looks like me, he could resonate, or she could resonate with somebody that looks completely different. So I think it's very probably more challenging for a business to deal with a very specific particular niche, especially when there's more than maybe one or two planners in that team. So so yeah. Okay, anyone else want to share anything here? I see everyone's got their cameras off. I'm feeling. Okay. Yeah, so okay, so the age thing is going to be a change. So I mean, this whole discussion kind of loops back into where do we find clients? You know, where do we get leads? And we discussed this a few months ago. And it's something we actually exploring as well, you know, because obviously when you want to grow a business, what do you need? Well, you need clients, you know. So we get our clients through referrals, which is nice. But I mean, ideally, you know, if you want to hit turbo, then you need another source of leads coming in. And one that I did use successfully years ago is the actual buying of leads. And I think I've shared with you guys who I well dealt with before. And there are I see there are a lot of businesses doing that. And I think you need to be very careful, because I think some of them will probably be a bit dicey. I had one contact me, and it was like a really hard sell that I just backed off because I was uncomfortable. But I mean, we got a client who's retiring at the end of January with 25 million in his retirement fund that I got through that type of cold calling. And all it was is the company that I bought leads for, I gave them a very specific spec of, I just wanted 15 minutes in front of somebody to just explain what we do. So I could break down how what I did was different to what they would have experienced. And it was either then, okay, I'll meet again and start your process, or I'm not interested. So I mean, I know for a lot of you, Yondela, a lot of this is Ferdy. I know a lot of you guys, it's difficult starting out. But I think what we're talking about, it's for you guys, you must feel a little helpless where we're talking about niches and our ideal clients, where I think a lot of people on this profile are just give me anybody, you know. And no matter what all the people on LinkedIn and Twitter and everything say, you know, and you get a lot of people who are experts in this industry, but don't actually earn their money seeing clients face to face. So it's very easy for them to talk in theory, but I think in practice, we have to be honest and just admit that it's a really tough job to start off if you're on your own. But if you can stick at it, it certainly will. You know, it will succeed, especially like if, you know, Frank says you really care and you give a shit. Bradley, I saw you smiling there. Sorry, yes,
Dirk,
Frank.
Sorry, Dirk. This is, I mean, now you understand why I'm here. I've got X amount of years, but I'm seriously having to start at the beginning again. And this is what, you know, you forget how difficult it was. You know, I haven't got a huge book. I've got a nice value in my book, but you know, I've got guys from 3 years experience to 15 years experience that we're recruiting and busy recruiting. So I need to know this stuff. I mean, now I'm reminded again. Sorry, it's just very important that I'm here, because you forget, you know, you just think guys are going to walk in, slip into where you are at. And I mean, it's all, you can give a guy a whole bunch of leads, but if he's not ready to deal with those leads, you're doing more damage than good.
Yeah, and I think that's partly what this forum is about, and this is a forum people will grow out of. We're very lucky that people like Russell and Simon stay here to give back, so we appreciate that, guys. But the reality is that, you know, everything out there says, oh, this is how you've got to do it. I could name names, but I'm not going to do that. But we all know people who've got quite loud voices and have got a very strong attitude as to where the industry goes wrong. Yes, the industry does go wrong in a lot of ways, but we know what that is. So no commission on 30-year endowments and shit like that, RAs. But I mean, for the rest, I think as long as you're being open and transparent, then it's fine. To expect every youngster out there to go and charge a flat fee and feed a family and pay a bond and a car with interest rates going up is simply unrealistic. You will get, out of 100, you might get 5 people who get lucky, and generally it's because they've either got 1 or 2 big clients or a network from their parents or someone they know that helps them get going. So that's the simple truth. So, we really are what's so Frank, what you said, I just want to ask you, when you've got people that are joining you, what is the reason that most of them are leaving where they were previously and then joining you? So I mean, what has been their problem? Because generally you don't leave unless you're unhappy or you see a better prospect. And then what are you offering those? I'm just interested because I think
it's a very the recruitment is my biggest nightmare at the moment. I'm not allowed. Can you believe? And this is completely unconstitutional, but it was a handshake done under a table 30 years ago. I'm not allowed to recruit from Old Mutual PFA, and that's where the people are the least happy. We're just not allowed to, and that's where I've got my networks in there. But we look at guys who've got a little bit of mongrel. We want fighters. We don't want guys who are just going to sit in their arse. It's an entrepreneurial thing, but that's fine. Everybody's got that. But it's guys with a bit of mongrel, guys who want a little bit more freedom, guys who want to earn between 90 and 100% commission, and that they're just sick and tired of the corporate structure within PFA. That's we all come from there. The guys, myself and my partner, and then what we're trying to build a lot more value within our engaged Cape in terms of what we can offer. So we've got a mandate and an amount of money that we can buy existing practices. So the sort of one-man shows out there who are tired, want to retire, we bring them in and we offer. So we've got to offer someone between 3 and 5 years a really good earning journey, and we've got to bring them in slowly. So we bring in the guy who's the seller comes into our business. We match him with a recruit or a prospect, and then we take that journey. But there's also the other issue around pension funds and corporate employee benefits. AFD don't have those. PFA have those. So you're not going to get a guy who's been there for 10 years, who's got 3 million, and it's just not going to happen. So we're trying to build, we're trying to make the offering a lot more secure, in the sense of how they will recognize that security. There's a lot more potential on the upside, but that's all. People, they get sold that story every day. Because there are recruiters running around trying to get guys out. So we just look at the other thing is that the most important thing is that I'm also mandated to take guys who are interested and give them their own shop. So make them an affiliate franchise principal, and then they build their own team. And that happens, within the first 3 years, if they have the inclination and they have the wherewithal and the chutzpah to do it, they can actually have their own business within the Old Mutual AFD franchise division. So but listen, I'll be honest, it's a work in progress because we have huge onboarding problems at Mutual. So I recruit a guy who's a real superstar, and 3 months later he's still waiting for a code. He's going to go. So I'm holding off on that until they've got their SHIT sorted out, which is taking a while. But we just want to, we're just trying to look for identify the right sort of person, and also, not make it that easy to get a job with us. It's a long, it's a process. We use an outsourced group called Top Grading, where we're looking for A or B players. A B player is actually the best player because we can build them into an A player, but not making it easy. And that's the issue. A lot of guys flip and flop around this industry. You find guys that have worked for 3 or 4 different FSPs. That's not my game. I don't want those guys. Yeah.
And tell me, Frank, what are the main reasons? I think we know them, but what are the main reasons you find that people want to leave, for instance, a PFA or another organization?
I can only talk with regard to PFA, but I'm sure they have similar things across all the big FSPs. It's micromanaged. They don't like being micromanaged. They also want to look at alternate asset classes, within reason, obviously. But they want that freedom to build something for themselves. That's really where it's at. I noticed a lot of the guys online have got their own businesses. So I'm talking to, I'm preaching to the converted here. You don't, I mean, trust me, you do not want to be working for PFA. It's just soul destroying. It's all measured on APE. It's all about, you know, so I mean, you end up being that guy who he eats what he kills, and it's just month to month pain. And you have great months and you have crap months, and it's just, there's never any sort of sense of security. So we're trying to build that and that's the biggest hook that we can put in the water at the moment. And you know, guys have come out of COVID, they're not happy. Their books have been decimated, their trail fees have been decimated, and they, you know, either they have the potential, they have to have the potential, but we can give them a framework to build something for themselves, because they have the potential to do it. They've done it in the past, so why not just do it for yourself? You know?
Yeah. Okay. Great. Bradley, I want to pick on you. I think you've sat on both sides of the fence. You just want to tell us a bit about, you know, how you got to where you are now, and then and how you feel about all that.
Yeah, how's it, everyone? So yeah, I think I'm very new to the industry. So I think hearing about like the niche, that's what I kind of smiled at earlier. It's quite hard to relate to that when you're new to the industry, because I think, as Dirk mentioned, you're trying to build a book, and you're not necessarily going, oh well, I'm only going to take on, say, doctors, or I'm only going to take on someone else. I mean, I'm still under like a period of supervision and stuff, so I'm still very new. But I think if I even look at just people that have been referred to me just in starting in the industry, I've dealt with an engineer, I've dealt with a doctor, I've dealt with a guy that's a tour guide that's inherited money. So it's like the spectrum starts from one end of like someone that's a doctor and an actor, well, the husband and wife's a doctor and an actuary, to the other end where there's a guy that's just started his own little, small like tour guide type of business. So I think, yeah, that niche element for me is a little bit unrelatable, if I'm honest. I can't quite, yeah, I think it's harder to understand when you're kind of new to the industry. But I think it's a great learning space to even hear that and hear how you can, you know, you can look to service. I think I love what Ben said about how he's trying to service them, and his reasoning behind it I thought was really cool, just to give them maybe an experience that they haven't had before. But yeah, I think for me, you know, coming into the industry, I'm trying to give that experience to whoever needs that experience. I think I've also realized, chatting to a lot of my mates that are younger than me or my age, a lot of them just don't see the value in like financial planning, or the value in maybe looking to start saving slightly younger. You know, everyone's kind of, my generation's all of the mindset of, oh, live while you're young and do this while you're young and spend your money while you're young and while you can. But I think there's just it's quite, I like hearing those elements, because it teaches me how to like show them in a direction of what value kind of we can bring to them. So yeah, I think in terms of the niche thing, I think it is a bit of a, as Ben was saying, I totally get where he's coming from, but it is a bit harder to relate. I think being a little bit younger.
Ben, go for it.
So, Bailey, I just wanted to just comment there. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, but I just want to share something that I heard the other day. There was a new financial planning company that were targeting. They're going to start in New York, I think it was, and they said, you know, we're new, we need to be a bit different, and so they said, well, we're going to target women only in New York, and like that was kind of like their target market was like women, and I think it was a certain age as well or whatever, but like they only did marketing to women in New York. That's all they did, and that's how the market was. They had a look at their book 5 years later. What percentage do you think were women from New York that was in their client base?
I wouldn't even have a clue.
It was something like, I mean, when I heard this, I thought, okay, well, it probably must be like 80% or something like that, you know, because that's who they're targeting. Only 17% was their target was their actual original target market. And the reason why is because they were just putting out a message that was so different that it resonated with people, because everyone's just like, you know, go offshore. Let's look at, you know, like everybody's got a compass and whatever on every financial planner's website, the compass and a sailboat and or whatever, you know. So everything's exactly the same. But the thing is that it was just such a different message. Like even though targeting women, as a guy, you can read a website and be like, but I want that, you know, and you can phone and like, you know, I know you're only servicing women from New York, but this sounds amazing. Can you make a plan for me? You know, and it's because it's a completely different message, and it's a message that's resonating with people. They actually, so although I target doctors, I do also get engineers and whatever's phoning me. I don't say sorry, not today. Go see Simon. I'll say cool, but we go through a process, and if you're willing to go through the process, then you know, and it's because they've heard something that resonates with them that they will contact me. So it just helps. So I believe that my niche just helps me target on who I'm marketing to. And if other people hear about it through that, then I will take them on as well. I'm not going to say, sorry, what's your HPCSA number? No, then you're not allowed to come and work with me. And so I just think my marketing gives me a direct direction of where I'm marketing to, and then it just helps me to spread a message, if that makes sense.
No, I think that's yeah. I think that's what I liked about what you said. How it's, I think your overall picture, what you said about, you know, maybe doctors are targeted by advisors because most advisors know they're going to be in time earning a lot of money. They can build their books nice and quickly. They're doctors. So I love what you said about you want to change their perspective. And I think that element doesn't just target doctors, like you were saying. So I think that, yeah, I think it makes total sense from like a marketing perspective in terms of you saying your main goal is just to almost to change people's perspective of the industry. And yeah, that's targeting doctors, but it targets more than just doctors. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that message is really important, such as what Frank said earlier. You know, I mean, some people will come away from a Brian wanting an offshore investment or a particular asset class or whatever. But if you start the discussions around that, you're dead. You're dead before you start. I've got a person here on the links who sent me a message and said, like, please do a plan for 20 million, like an investment plan. It's like, but we need to talk first, you know, like, what's it all about? You know, and then when you go and chat, they don't even know. They just know, I want, you know, Buffett this or offshore this, or they got, so as successful as people are in building, in creating wealth, most of them are absolutely useless at preserving it and then building it further. And I think that if your marketing message is around product, and that's a product, or it's offshore or anything like that, you're going to look the same as everybody else. And I think that's what Frank says as well when they're trying to tell stories. I think that's really important because, you know, you need, and especially times right now, I think there's massive opportunity with COVID, and that is people are a lot more aware. I think there's been a lot more family stress, you know, which has come through financially, and it's come through, I actually have to spend 24 hours with my wife and my kids. So, you know, it's all the stuff that has made people really look at life differently. As you know, we got a massive influx of people moving to St. Francis Bay, and they come from all over the country, and there's a lot of reasons, but people don't want to live in a big city that's absolutely going to rack and ruin because of politicians stealing everything. They want to live in a place where they can reconnect with their family, where they can meet new people. So with and that's all emotion. It's not financial, because people are coming here and they're like saying, I need a place to stay, or they're even trying to start businesses. It's just people have realized that there's more to life than just being on that treadmill. And even if they're earning well, just living, you know, living from month to month or week to week or whatever it is. So I think there's really an opportunity there to take advantage of that in the message that we get across. And I think also when we sit with clients, again, you know, having a process that finds out more about the individual will actually highlight that and make people realize that you're different to any experience that's, you know, that they've had before. Haley, is your mic still not working? Obviously, that's a no. Okay. Now, I wanted to just ask, because Haley's joined an established business and okay. Barry, Matthew, can I just pick on you? So you're with more of a corporate group, so I know nothing that's been said here was aimed at you, But I know you guys, you with Fairburn Consult, so you're also creating, and I know it's completely different to PFA, but like, you know, what resonates in this conversation with you in your role within the business. So I think the way I understand, you got a role as, I think, MD of the business, and then also, you know, you obviously, the reason you're here is because you're wanting to learn about what really happens down on the ground.
No, absolutely. I was actually going to try and claim that my microphone's not working excuse as well, but I didn't get to typing fast enough. Dirk, maybe just to position Fairburn Consult, it's probably closer to Masthead, or at least the financial planning side of things, than PFA. So it's yes, it's 100% owned by Mutual, but it is whole of market. So that was one of the things that I had. I worked for a while in AFD, and the issue that I had with the tied areas was if you had a client who had a need for something, and you couldn't meet that need through the product provider that you were linked with, then what did you do with the client? You know, you had essentially an unfulfilled need that you either needed to outsource or you needed to say to the client, listen, well, actually, this is what you need, but I can't give it to you. So my personal view was that I needed to go independent. Fairburn Consult, relatively new, set up 2 years ago. I'm actually running a division within Fairburn Consult. So the way that they're trying to target things is a real sort of be all and end all to independence, as far as possible. My entity is going to be on the receiving end of, I think, value adds to the rest of the independent community that have come on board. So, for example, a lot of sole proprietors at the moment, should they not be able to work, should they die, should, you know, something like that happen to them, possibly even should they want to retire, they don't necessarily have a succession plan in place, or at least a succession plan that's going to work. So my entity, for example, is the succession plan underneath, you know, all the rest of the advisors. It's the plan B for if they don't have a plan A, and it kicks in should plan A not be there or not be workable. I'm also in the market, so I would, Frank, love to chat to you a little bit more around how successful you've been at I suppose buying clients, buying practices, because that's very much what I'm trying to do, is force the succession plan for people that are looking to leave the industry. So be there and at least be in contention. The conversation today, just the whole fee conversation, is very topical. You know, we're on the receiving end of a number of clients. So take our brokerage, there are about 150 planners. They come and go. A lot of comments have been made about people who move around through various FSPs. So we've had a number of people coming into Fairburn. They get a better offer from somebody else. They bugger off. 6 months later, they realize it wasn't a better offer. They try to come back. The wheels are falling off all over the show. And they're clients that are being left behind in various different places. Now, those clients essentially are Fairburn Consult clients, from a phase point of view. And so, I'm mopping up a number of clients in a number of different places who've had motley experiences. So to try and I suppose do right by the clients, and at the same time do right by us, and make sure that it's not a huge amount of effort for very little gain. How do we make sure that we can make them profitable? I simply am still unsure around exactly what fee model to be using and how to do it. So I'm doing a lot of work. I've signed up for various different coaching programs. Mutual Wealth has come up a couple of times. I'm dealing with a woman called Mandy Murphy, who does business coaching in that space, and she's helping me. She's helping me a lot. But it's still, I mean, look, she's very experienced. For me, I've got a lot of theory, not a hell of a lot of experience. So it's very much a suck it and see kind of approach that we're doing here, and something that works in one space doesn't work in the next. So yeah, interesting learnings. Thanks, Frank. Appreciate that. I suppose the other thing that I'm finding, and Dirk, you and I have had a very brief conversation about this, is how do you try to sort of show your value to somebody who has been self-driven to a large extent, and has been successfully sort of self-driven. So I positioned my offering, or our offering rather, and how we wanted to work, and the value that I thought we could add to a guy who is late 70s, ill, and has quite a healthy sort of set of money set aside. And so he was, looking for a review of what he's got and whether it's appropriate, and he's probably looking at sort of 3 or 4 years of life left, given his cancer prognosis. And the estate plan was a big item for him. And I have absolutely zero doubt that the value that we can offer to him and his beneficiaries is significantly more than the fee that I put out there. And yet he glitched on the fee. He was just like, no. And so, I'm wrestling with what do I do with that particular client? How do I show value? Because I would love to work with him. We get on well at a personal level, and I know that I can offer value. I know that he's, as I say, his total whole will get more value than I was going to build. But it needs to be worthwhile, and I'll kind of walk away until we can get to a point of resolution. Because I don't want to start doing the plan for him and say, hey, this is what we could do, and then he goes, okay, great, and off he goes and does it. So yeah, I'd be interested in the thoughts from other people around how you can, I suppose, show that value.
Yeah, I think Barry had a really good point there. And the reality is, again, you're not going to work with everybody. And I think that's where you do need to draw the line. When you're starting out, sure, you'll try and help everyone. But with a chap like that, there's very little chance of turning him around. So you just got to set him free, and off you go. We had a guy who walked in 70 million, trying to take him through the process, stammered through the first proper meeting. He just kept wanting to take control. Eventually I just said, look, we're not going to work well together. He couldn't work with Investec. He couldn't work with client care. So, all he was about was trying to show that he could do the job better. So I said to him, I'm not sure why he came to us. So I think the reality is, and it's difficult when we see clients that could be great clients. And when I mean great, because they've got lots of money. And that's why we got to be very careful about how we call a client a great client. I would rather have, if I had 100 of our average clients, 100 clients that earned us 70,000 Rand a year, we'd be bringing, our turnover would be more than it currently is. And they're really average people. And when I mean that average, I mean financially. If you're retiring on 7 or 8 million Rand, you've got to be extremely careful. You don't have the luxury of making mistakes. So you need what we offer. You really, really need a lot of advice, and we can add a lot of value to those people. And I think then, what we earn based on that is really not a lot, especially if you're dealing with a smaller client base where you can give them more attention and you can add more value. But the hard part is sticking to your guns. And that's why we do what we do, because we won't be transactional, because I can guarantee you 99 times out of 100, it'll come back and bite you. And you're going to be left feeling angry with yourself because you compromised your values, and pissed off because, if a client will come to you on price, he's going to leave you on price. It's really that simple. June.
Yeah, maybe just on that, I think it's a good question, or a good topic. And I'm always thinking about, because we do deal with people that would like to implement themselves. So my question would be, and I mean, I would ask this to a client as well. What is it that you value, you know, from me? Because they come to you for something. So what is it that they value? And what are they willing to pay for that? Because they definitely, I mean, are you just giving free advice? And are they implementing somewhere else? So I would ask the question, what is it that you value in this relationship? What are you willing to pay for it? Because you do run a professional service. And, you know, and I think that's where I like what you said initially, Dirk, that, you know, there's no right or wrong way in terms of how you charge, but you can charge for the advice and the plan, and they can go and implement anywhere that they want. But at least you've been paid for the service and your profession, you know, your knowledge and experience that you've provided. So that's the only thing that I can maybe add to that.
You see, I don't even want to do that. And I'm not saying that I'm right. I'm right for myself. I'm right for our business.
Yes.
Because the reality is that the minute I've done that plan, so I deliver the plan to the clients on Friday afternoon at 2 o'clock. Come Monday morning, everything's changed. Something's happened on the weekend. That plan doesn't work anymore. So the value in, and we say, oh, we've got the technical knowledge, this, that. If you want to be like a lawyer, then you got to charge by the hour. And anyone who believes that is the way to do, well, I'll give you a very thick book I got from the US where it shows that that's the worst thing you can do. Because if you employ someone by the hour, like an auditor, you know, if you've got a guy who's or a person who's doing the articles versus someone who's been in the practice for 30 years, you know, the one guy will do it in an hour, the other guy will take 5 hours. So who's going to get the work? The guy who's going to take 5 hours. So it is absolutely, getting paid by the hour has absolutely no link to the value of the advice that you're getting. Absolutely no link. In fact, it's quite the opposite. So I'm quite happy to chat to anyone who charges by the hour, because their skill level could be completely different to the person next door. So I just think that's where you've got to be brave to walk away. And for us, we're not interested in, again, doing a plan. I see that as transactional. Because, and that's why in our process is about getting to know the individual. Until we believe, until we know the individual, we've got no right to talk to them about their money. And when people go through that process, they come out the other side and it's, okay, now I get it. I get what you mean. And also they're talking a different language. They're not talking onshore or offshore or asset allocation. They're talking about their life, about their plan. So, and that's, this forum is about lifestyle planning for people who want to get the best deal. You know, that those the other forums that will probably, those things will get discussed. But I think if your focus is lifestyle planning, then that's what it is. Russell?
Yeah, I think that's another thing I just meant. I agree with you 100%, Dirk, as well. That's also why we've kind of, with the whole fee packaging thing as well, we're trying to actually build a subscription model, because when you charge per hour, and it also made me realize as well, when Crystal was talking about it on the future, he said that the downside of charging per hour is that it actually discourages you from becoming more skilled or better than what you do, because by becoming more skilled, experienced, and better at what you do, you're taking up less time, and then the client starts attaching your value to your price. And so then basically, if you can do your job faster, now you're actually more inclined of like becoming inefficient and taking more of your time, which is not good for the business, and also, you know, not good for the rest of your other clients, because you're going to end up charging less. And then you also, it's a psychology thing as well. You end up resenting working with those type of clients, or working with your clients in general, because now you're going to make less and you can't scale your business. And also, I think to what you mentioned earlier, they also rose the point, and that's why it resonated a lot with me when I was thinking about financial plan, is that with them, it's the same thing as well. Clients, you have to take it into account again. Clients have this perception of what value adding, which is a product, right? The same thing with them. It's like, you know, some marketing design or logo. But also, clients only realize the true value once they've started working with a proper financial planner for a lengthy period of time. You know, you take our profession, they start realizing that, you know, all these meetings, or say the check-ins they have when they have a life crisis or a life change in their lifestyle, and they call you immediately, they realize, oh, you know, I have that person I can talk to now. And it becomes more than just like the product. So again, it comes back to having that long experience and the client realizing that this isn't just a one-time thing. We're actually here to like build relationships and build with you throughout your lifestyle. It's not like, no, you pay me now and you never see me again, you know? So yeah.
Lifestyle financial planning is a verb. It's not a noun. So, guys, listen, we're running out of time here. I've got a meeting at 10. Thanks very much. Welcome to the new guys, and thanks both of you for sharing. Yeah, if there are any other topics, so Frank, you would have seen is that we're trying to deal with things that are practical in this forum and that really help us on our day-to-day business in running our businesses and in building our businesses and assisting our clients. So
yeah,
thanks, guys.
I hope. Sorry, I hope I didn't talk too much, but I get a bit excited. But Barry, please, I've put my number in here. Please phone me. Yeah, I'd love to talk to you. Okay, thanks.
Frank, we like people who get excited because it means you're passionate. So great. If anyone thinks of something that they'd like to discuss in our next session, just put it on the group and share again. Carry on to share anything that you find will be valuable. Have a great week, guys.
Thanks all.
Thanks so much, Dirk.
Thank you very much. Thank you.